Welcome back to KTN Prime. We're having a sit-down with Murang'a Governor Irungu Kang'ata, who says for this country to move forward, we need equal access to quality education, hence better funding, improved healthcare, and inclusive development through investment in manufacturing. He recently joined the Democracy for Citizens Party after seeing the proverbial writing on the wall, but he's still linked to the Linda Mwananchi movement. The man of the hour joins me in studio. Governor Kang'ata, welcome to KTN Prime. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Asante, we're having this sit down at a time when President William Ruto has just spoken to the nation, and he mentioned that we should focus on charting a way forward for the nation's development. That development transcends election cycles, and for 2 decades we've had Vision 2030 that has shaped our national direction, which is approaching its horizon, and hence setting the ambitious targets through Vision 2060. I'm pretty sure you're privy to some of the sentiments he shared with the nation, but he was comparing Asian tigers who've transformed their economies into prosperous, high-income competitive nations. They've expanded their imports, they've attracted investments. Why have other nations fulfilled their potentials and we seem to be lagging behind? Why is this, and how can we get it right this time round, as you reflect on what President William Ruto had to say? I think we have a short bite of the president while he was addressing the nation. Let's just listen in for purposes.
You're right. That capacity is there to do the right things, but it is covered by the institutional failure problem. Is somebody wants to overrun the institution. Right now, I don't mind even if I'm quoted. Right now, the current president overruns all the institutions. And that is why everybody in those institutions will have to conform for fear. But I refuse to do deals in the Ministry of Finance. I can't do deals. I know. It follows you to your grave. It doesn't go away with the regime, by the way. There are people who are my friends that were caught up in some of those things, including in the central bank. And even by the time they died, they were still being followed by those things. The cases were not concluded because it becomes a major punishment. Now, it's only capacity at the individual level and the institutional level that can give you that courage to say no, because you know it will follow you. Regimes change and rules of the game change. And that is one of the biggest lessons. Actually, there are some people who actually argue that I would not have succeeded with M-Pesa, for example, if it was a different regime. And I've seen it. There's a Minister of Finance who even almost stopped M-Pesa. It's only that I reminded him that the central bank is independent and you cannot direct the governor of the central bank. But even having said that, because the big banks were fighting, I had to go down and do what he wanted.
Well, apologies for that. That's the former Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Professor Ndongo, who was speaking on how Ruto is driving his administration. We'll get to that in just but a few. But let's start with Ruto and how he's been able to break down the National Development Charter as we lay the foundation of Vision 2060. So back to my question earlier, we've been compared to the Asian tigers, but in terms of reaching our potential, there seems to be a lagging behind when it comes to our country. How can we get it right this time round, away from the rhetorics? Yeah.
From an economic point of view, we need to give priority to manufacturing. This country, since independence, we did not give manufacturing the right policy priority. That includes things like providing cheap land to manufacturers, 2, tax incentives. That might include probably establishing special economic zones. 3, good taxation policy. Some countries deliberately give tax incentives to manufacturers who export. Number 4, and most importantly, manufacturing demands certain enabling facilities like water, electricity. For instance, in electricity, we have one of the highest tariffs in this region. So the day Kenya, Sub-Saharan Africa, will create those conditions, then that's when we will rise up to become a rich country. For you to understand the importance of manufacturing, just look around yourself. The clothes that you are wearing, the phone that you are using, the desk key that you are using, anything of value surrounding you. That means you as a Kenyan, you bought all these things from somebody, more often than not a Chinese. So you create employment in China, you transfer all your resources to China, and therefore the reverse needs to happen, that we manufacture more goods locally and we sell them, then we become rich.
And we haven't gotten this right ever since Vision 2030 was articulated over 2 decades ago. Because under the leadership of the industrialization former cabinet secretary, we saw some special economic zones being set up in various counties. What's the missing link? Why haven't we gotten it right?
It's about priority. You know, government has so many needs. It has things like, let's say, agriculture. It has things like energy, so many needs, roads. But you have to choose that which you will give priority. So I think successive governments did not give manufacturing the right policy priority. South Korea did so, China did so, Vietnam has done so, Bangladesh, a country that was poorer than Kenya about 20 years ago, is now more richer than Kenya in terms of GDP per capita. But by 2005, it was poorer than Kenya. But they decided to manufacture clothing. Now they created more jobs, they are more richer. So you cannot have your cake and eat it. You have to choose the right policy.
Okay, let's speak about certain policies, because just today, according to President William Ruto, his administration has restored macroeconomic stability. He says they've stabilized the currency, 6.5 months of foreign exchange reserves, which is a good thing. Inflation has declined. We have a boost in foreign direct investment as a country. From where you sit and from your interaction with Murang'a residents and Kenyans alike, how would you rate this administration's handling of the economy?
I think the main problem from where I see it is that the problem of taxation. Kenyans feel that there have been new taxes have been introduced, which they do not foster development. Because basically taxation means you shift money from the citizen to the government. So you make the business environment more difficult, and look at the kind of contributions we now transfer to government, things like higher NSSF, higher NHIF contribution. Look at our corporate tax rates, I think 30% also. So, and look at other forms of levies. If this government was pro-business, pro-manufacturing, it would do the reverse. One, it would reduce, let's say, corporate tax. Okay, not maybe one can argue not for every company, but at least targeted, let's say, for manufacturing, those who do manufacturing and exporting. Let's say those who do agro-processing, like avocado, tea, but they are doing the reverse. Currently, there's a proposal to introduce a tea levy. We are one of the leading countries when it comes to exporting tea. Yeah, like in Murang'a, the regions that grow tea, that's where we have quite some good income. But now when you introduce a tea levy, I think you are giving the wrong signals to that sector. The same also happens in terms of their intention to create industrial park. I think it's positive, and I really want to thank Moses Kuria when he was in the Ministry of Trade. He came up with that idea of county aggregation industrial park. But and also Murang'a has some partnership with the national government to establish a special economic zone. But there are problems in that strategy based on my interaction with that thing. One, you need support in terms of infrastructure. water, roads, power. Like now, our Murang'a Industrial Park, it needs about 2 billion to have a substation. I haven't seen that commitment yet. Then you might need also things like marketing for that industrial park. It needs a robust thing. When I visited CESA, Special Economic Zone Authority, the kind of requirements that they have put in place to register a company or an entity to a CESA, they are too laborious. And for me, one strategy to industrialize this country is to deregulate, reduce the number of regulations that the government has. Leave alone manufacturing, just take any typical industry in Kenya. How many licenses will government require you to have? Example, a hotel. You have to pay one, National Construction Authority to construct, NEMA license. Then you pay county council. Then you pay music copyright. Then you pay Tourism Development Authority. There's also another tourism entity that you have to pay. Almost 15 types of levies that you have to look for and pay. And so for me, a government truly wanting to create a pro-business environment, it starts to deregulate, it starts to reduce corporate taxes for targeted entities, it starts to create infrastructure for those areas that will definitely be the ecosystem to support manufacturing.
Well, according to your breakdown, it seems we're shooting ourselves in our own foot, setting up industrial parks, special economic zones without the supporting infrastructure. Then that's like a recipe for disaster, you know? It's quite unfortunate. I'd like us to speak, because you started highlighting the problem of overtaxation, and it seems the government got that message loud and clear in 2024 from the Kenyan Gen Z who agitated for change in governance, and perhaps there was a different approach when it comes to the establishment of the National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. According to President William Ruto, he says this will lay the groundwork to support Kenya's long-term transformation, to ensure investments essential for Kenya's transformation are financed sustainably, and to preserve and invest the wealth of our nation so that today's prosperity becomes tomorrow's opportunity. Your evaluation of the setting up of these funds, and I ask this question knowing very well the accountability concerns that have been highlighted around the management of the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the National Infrastructure Fund.
The idea to merge parastatals and to sell off publicly owned companies, from where I sit, I support. It's a good idea. I think from where I sit, one of the problem Uhuru governments did is failure to implement the Abdikadir report, I think of 2014 or 2015, which had proposed merger of government parastatals. However, there is what we call trust deficit. People have this notion that they are distrusting whether what is being done is bona fide, whether we are getting the right value, and whether we are turning this country into what the Russian and Ukraine economies became, the oligarchies, where we have these public assets. When they change hands, instead of them going to people who will create best value, they get into hands of those who are powerful, who are not the most entrepreneurial, but rather they are the most competitive. So therefore, that is more of public asset stripping, rather unleashing the entrepreneurial spirit that might exist out there. So I think that's an area government needs to work on to ensure Kenya trust that process of privatization.
Okay, let's just hear what President William Ruto had to say a little bit earlier on, who said a national conversation on Kenya's future beyond the Vision 2030 will be formally launched on the 12th of next month. He was speaking during his address to the nation this evening, where the head of state said the conversation will be steered by representatives from all sectors and not politicians only. He added that this will inform the country's economic future, which will transcend election cycles. Listen in.
On Wednesday, the 12th of August, 2026, we shall formally launch a national conversation on Kenya's future beyond Vision 2030, the most consequential exercise in national reflection and public participation since the promulgation of our Constitution in 2010. We shall bring together every institution of our republic, every county and every generation, leaders from political parties, the private sector, workers' organizations, faith communities, universities, professional associations, innovators, civil society, our creative industry, and above all, our young people will be at the center. A national development charter for the attainment of these noble constitutional imperatives cannot be designed by politicians alone, nor by any single institution, profession, or interest group. It must be shaped by the people of Kenya themselves through an open, inclusive, and honest national conversation. For the Constitution belongs to the people, and so too must the vision that gives it practical expression.
Okay, the words from the horse's mouth, President William Ruto, breaking down how we need to move forward as a country in terms of our priority areas. Governor Kang'ata, at the end of the day, have we actualized Vision 2030 from where you sit, even as we shift focus to perhaps Vision 2060? Well, what are the gaps that need to be filled as we move forward with this new agenda setting?
No, I think we have missed. You see, we have something we call gross domestic product. It is the one that is used to measure how a country is rich or poor. Yeah, that is the total value of all goods and services produced by any country. So Kenya's gross domestic product per head, what we call per capita, the last time I checked was about 2,500 or so USD per annum. That is very low. Yeah, that's very low because that then means we are quite a poor country. When you talk about countries like Singapore, which the president says we want to go to, they are 100,000 USD per capita. That means that's about how many times? Almost 50 times. Yeah, more richer than us. If you talk of a country like, pick any country, let's say, let's even say Jamaica. It is 3 times richer than Kenya when you talk of GDP per capita.
Okay.
Think of any other country in Africa, a country like South Africa, thrice richer than Kenya. Go to Seychelles or Mauritius or Botswana. They are about 6 times or richer than Kenya. So look at historical growth of this country. In 1960, we were poorer than South Korea, China. So it means our growth rate has been low. Currently, we are growing at about 5% per annum GDP. During Kibaki time, we were growing at about 7%. That is the fastest growth of Kenyan economy ever between the year 2003 and 2013. Uhuru Kenyatta gave us 5% growth rate. President Ruto, as per the latest report, we are growing slowly, a little, at about 4.5, 4.9. So for us to reach where Vision 2030 wanted us to reach, we needed to grow at 7% per annum.
So when you hear the president saying the journey to Singapore is taking root, is this wishful thinking? Can we actually actualize this sentiments?
As at now, we are not, because we are growing our economy much slower.
And
I'm
what's
saying less than 5% per annum.
Okay.
So we need to reach at least 7 or 8%. Can we reach there? Yes, of course, it's possible. Look at our neighboring Uganda. Uganda is growing at about 8-9%. Or even better still, Ethiopia. Ethiopia is growing at about 9% per annum. That's huge transformation. And when you go to Addis Ababa, you can clearly see a structural transformation of the economy. So in this country, we are yet to see evidence of a structural change. Everyone ought to see it.
And feel it.
And feel it in their pocket when a country is developing, because it means higher disposable income, better public services. But we are yet to see that, and therefore I would propose that Kenya becomes a little bit more serious. Can we achieve it? Yes, we can achieve it. How? As I said, number one, give priority to manufacturing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that will mean, let's say you attract. Think of a company that does major work in, let's say, in smartphone, like Apple. Assume Apple comes and puts a factory in Kenya. Then it will start exporting their phones to Asia, everywhere else. Then that will be counted as new value. So Kenya will be richer. Think of any other company that does mass production of goods when it comes to this country. So our attractiveness is one that needs to pull people into this country. Then our wealth becomes more and more, and become more richer and richer. Of course, also we need to invest in education, because a workforce that is educated is what makes better decision, more rational decision. The third one is in healthcare, because the human capital, the most important element in the factors of production, needs to be healthy. Once we achieve those three pillars, I believe that's when we can go back to a GDP growth of about 7%, 8% per annum.
Okay, that's interesting. Since you've mentioned matters to do with manufacturing, education, healthcare, you've already broken down matters to do with manufacturing. Let's talk about this education sector. We've seen a couple of reforms touted by the president. Not too long ago, he gave the proposal of tertiary funding, walking away from the current financing model that has been contested, putting pressure on households and families to fork out money from their pockets in order to, finance the education of their young learners, whether in TVETs or universities across the country. With this proposal that has been mentioned by the president, are we walking towards the right direction where we'll actualize matters to do with equality and equal access to education, especially as we focus on the tertiary level?
When you want to cut down a tree, do you start from above or from below?
From below.
From below.
Yeah.
So I think, my view,
Yeah.
if you want the first intervention you want to do in the education sector, you start from the roots. And the roots basically is basic education.
And capitation.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you start with primary schools, then you go to high school. And for obvious reason, and one reason being the numbers. Development is about numbers. Yeah, you must craft policies that impact as many as possible. There's a philosophy called utilitarianism that talks about greatest happiness for the greatest number. And at times it makes a lot of sense that you start with where you have
highest impact.
Yes. Every coin of the government must give you the highest return, what we call the return on investment. So look at the people who are in our universities. Yes, they do a good job, and that's so good, including those of us who went to the university. But how many reach that level? I think the last time I checked, it's about 200,000 out of 1 million so who graduate out of the high school. So, but the people who are in our high school in this country, they are about 4 million. So these 4 million, about half of them, 2 million, are in day schools. So if you can do an intervention in day school, you'll be touching 2 million households. And my view would be you provide free day school education. And the money needed for that is very little, by the way. It is about every parent in a day school in Kenya, on average, pays 15,000 per annum. So if you multiply 2 million students times 15,000 annual fees, that's about 30 billion Kenya shilling. Are you telling me this country cannot afford 30 billion shillings to give free day school education? In a country where we are collecting 130 billion housing levy, and so far we have only built 2,000 units, and people are not being given for free, they are paying.
Yes.
So, which is a better return on investment? 120 billion affordable housing, or 30 billion you remove fees barriers for children to go to high school.
So in short, you're calling bluff the move to perhaps revolutionize tertiary funding without looking at the issues of capitation delays, without looking at issues of capitation reaching, not in the prescribed amounts, looking at financing day secondary education. We should start from the ground up, in short.
Well, I am not really saying it is a bad thing to give, let's say, free university education. But I'm just saying there is what we call sequencing and prioritization. You may want, for instance, to have a Mercedes-Benz, to have a Range Rover in life, isn't it? Yeah. People have so many desires. But if you have not eaten, does that count? You first eat, then you look for a place to sleep, then you look for your clothes, then you start thinking about things like driving a Mercedes-Benz.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the youth, because Africa is the home to youngest and the fastest growing population. President William Ruto has said in order to actualize this vision he's about to set forth next month, young people should be at the center. But as we speak, even as Ruto mentions that all hands should be on deck, not just politicians, young people should be front and center. We have a report that ranked Kenya as the last among 16 African countries in confidence about economic prospects and future employment opportunities among people aged 18 and 24 years. It's the newly released 2026 African Youth Survey that found 79% of Kenyan youth believe the country's economy is headed in the wrong direction. And they were reflecting concerns over household financial pressure, slow job creation, uncertainty about the future. So from your interactions with the Kenyan youth, are they truly disenfranchised? How do we get them to the decision-making table and get more opportunities for them?
I think every household in Kenya has one young person who is looking for some job. I think the level of unemployment in Kenya, I feel, is highly understated based on my interaction with the people out there. How do you solve? Don't go further for you to understand the importance of manufacturing in jobs creation than a simple visit to Kitengela. So whoever came up with the idea of having an EPZ in Kitengela should be credited with the jobs Kitengela EPZ creates. You find, I think, data in population in that EPZ is about 60,000. And that tells you if we had more EPZ in this country, the kind of jobs they can create, the kind of employment they would render to this country. And young people, we must understand, they are now no longer socialized to do farming. This is a young person who comes from morning to evening, going to school, studying. So that child has never been exposed to gardening. So you cannot now argue that agriculture will be the one that will offer these young people jobs. So we must therefore structurally transform our economy to a more industrial-based economy if we want to absorb all those young people into some form of occupation.
Okay.
And without that, we'll never solve this problem.
Well, I hope you've got assurances from the camp you're politically aligned to. But before we get to politics, the former Treasury Cabinet Secretary accused President William Ruto of overrunning government institutions, forcing civil servants to conform out of fear, hence weakening institutional independence. He was speaking just today in Sweden, and perhaps you can replay that bite, since the former cabinet secretary, who now serves as a lecturer and a researcher, made those remarks while responding to a question on tackling corruption in development corporations. Let's just listen in.
You're right. That capacity is there to do the right things. But it is covered by the institutional failure problem if somebody wants to overrun the institution. Right now, I don't mind even if I'm quoted, right now, the current president overruns all the institutions. And that is why everybody in those institutions will have to conform for fear. But I refuse to do deals in the Ministry of Finance. I can't do deals. I know. It follows you to your grave. It doesn't go away with the regime, by the way. There are people who are my friends that were caught up in some of those things, including in the central bank. And even by the time they died, they were still being followed by those things. The cases were not concluded because it becomes a major punishment. Now, it's only capacity at the individual level and the institutional level that can give you that courage to say no, because you know it will follow you. Regimes change and rules of the game change. And that is one of the biggest lessons. Actually, there are some people who actually argue that I would not have succeeded with M-Pesa, for example, if it was a different regime. And I've seen it. There's a Minister of Finance who even almost stopped M-Pesa. It's only that I reminded him that the central bank is independent and you cannot direct the governor of the central bank. But even having said that, because the big banks were fighting, I had to go down and do what he wanted.
So claims of high-handedness, perhaps running a government of wheeler-dealers, but at the end of the day, we could focus on the independence of institutions, which might be overshadowed due to President William Ruto perhaps running a one-man show. So start with this. Have you perhaps experienced this of heavy-handedness from the president in terms of perhaps running the devolved unit in which you are currently serving Murang'a, and equally, what does it speak to the independence of our institutions right here in the country?
Allow me not to speak about personalities. I will be very hesitant to go that direction. Mm-hmm. The only thing I will say is that I think the best way to run government institution is to set up a review and monitoring meetings, and you give them targets and you evaluate them, and then you award them later on. That was the idea behind performance contracting of Kibaki, which was even ranked as one of the best innovations by the United Nations. Even us in Murang'a, we do it in our small ways, where we meet every week. We meet, let's say, Department of Health. You sit down, you tell them these are the programs that you run. How are they doing? Have you met these targets? Then you award them mass. Then that's it. At the end of the year, whoever will be the best gets an award.
Okay.
That way, you're also free. You know, you know how government is large. You may not be able to have your hand in each and every thing happening. Also, it helps to respect protocol. You, as let's say the president or the governor, you're only dealing with the CEC, because if CEC knows you talk to the PS, then the CEC will be highly demoralized. Mm-hmm. The CS or the PS, the case that might be. So I think there is wisdom in allowing institutions to work. You only evaluate them based on the output. You know, even Jesus said, we shall know them by their fruits. So you wait until you see the outcome of your work, but not at the initial stages.
Okay, and I don't want to talk about personalities here, but having been a member of, was it the 12th Parliament, we've seen feedback about the 13th Parliament that perhaps waters down on its independence. Some argue that it's an appendage of the executive. Then let's talk about the independence of these institutions. When a government came in power promising that there will no longer be state capture, and we hear from former officials that perhaps this is not a thing of the past, what does it speak to in terms of our nature of governance and application of the rule of law?
Well, as to Parliament, at times that for me it can be a little bit excusable because, you know, Parliament is more of a political organ. And, you know, its leadership is about politics and managing politics. Of course, there's the element of maybe the decay of the oversighting power of Parliament because of that so-called state capture. But I would be more concerned of what we call economic institutions that drive economics, like what Professor is talking about, central bank needs the independence, to be protected and guaranteed. And other entities that drive economic decision. You have to make a decision knowing no one will call you, and that your decision will be upheld, even if maybe the executive is not happy with our decision. Yes, he can express, but we need to allow institutions to run independently.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk politics now, because we're having this conversation against the backdrop of intensifying political activity in the country as we edge closer to the 2027 general election. We've seen realignments, you included, defections, succession battles seem to be taking shape. And just today, Linda Mwananchi leaders met the Wiper Patriotic Front leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, as unverified reports continue to circulate about a potential Kalonzo Musyoka joining the government, something that he vehemently denied just today. Let's listen in to the Wiper leader and the Nairobi Senator, Edwin Sifuna.
But we want to assure Kenyans that we are going to unite. We have no option. All of us who love this country so dearly, who have sacrificed so much that this country can be a true democracy, not a dictatorship, not a kleptocracy, not a gangster regime, not a gangsterism, which is what it is today. So I want to tell Mr. William Ruto, please stop. Stop imagining that one Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka can ever join you. We'll meet at the ballot. We will have that conversation at the ballot on the 10th of August, next year, God willing. Correct. We pray to God that He gives you good health, He gives us good health, tukutane pale, so we can now consolidate our democracy and do away with this pretense. The people of Akalao are an amazing lot of people.
Your Excellency, our people want to see us together. They want to see one team united as the people who believe that President William Ruto does not deserve a second term, and that the message we have carried from the ground in all these places that we have gone is that we must preach the unity of the opposition. And it's a unity that is based on certain values, and I'm coming to that as our second agenda here today, is to try to build consensus amongst the leadership of the opposition as to what they view is important to the people of Kenya at this particular moment in time. Your Excellency, increasingly we hear from young people especially that democratic governance and freedoms and the values that are expressed in our constitution are better than these shiny things that we see, because they believe roads can be built by anyone, but only a Democrat will protect the freedoms and rights under our constitution.
Interesting sentiments right there, Governor. So perhaps as we enter matters politics, you recently joined DCP. Did you cut ties with the Linda Mwananchi faction? But even as you answer that, how important is it for a united opposition and Linda Mwananchi faction to present a unified candidate against President William Ruto's re-election bid?
No, I've not cut ties with the Linda.
Okay.
No, Linda is a movement. It's not a political party. You see people of Wiper in it, people of Jubilee Party, which aligns itself with Matiang'i in it. So everyone is welcome to join Linda. So I am DCP Linda.
It's not a party yet.
Yes, so I'm talking things as they are.
As they are.
Yeah, now.
Okay.
So
And once it's a party?
we'll discuss that later, but
Okay.
for me, I've taken a position
Yes.
that my re-election vehicle will be DCP, and the leader is His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. So, so that's my boss, my political boss for now. So I will not change, but I still believe in the ideas of Linda Mwananchi, which is all-encompassing. It's open for everyone, and therefore I support Mr. Sifuna and his aspirations. As to fielding one candidate, yes, I think that's an aspiration every leader who has commented on the issue. But for me, as a person, it's not really about who becomes president or deputy president. It's about the issues, because I believe winning is always the easier part. Governing is the hardest part. So me, I lean more towards the platform. What are you selling to Kenyans? What is your agenda? If you win that position, what will you do? You need to clarify that early, because once you win, I can tell you what matters is the first 3 months of any administration. You can always know a government that is good or bad on the first 3 months, because that's when you have the greatest political capital to do whatever you want to do. Yeah, I know also out of history, best governments perform in the first 3 months. See, like now, this concept of CBK independence, that idea came from UK when Tony Blair became the Prime Minister. And the then Chancellor of UK, that is Gordon Brown, he brought that amendment, that law, that independence, within 3 months upon them getting into government. The same way with the government of one of the most consequential US presidents, it's called Roosevelt, in 1930s. Within the first 3 months, he had instituted major legislative successes that created, let's say, like the National Youth Corps, that created jobs for the young people. Another law that was trying to revive banks. You know, banks had collapsed. So the point is, X being on that seat, that's okay. But let us think more about issues. Let us think about the platform. And that is where I'm there in that formation to push for manufacturing, education, and healthcare.
And since you're in that platform has been criticized for perhaps being light on agenda setting, but heavy on political rhetoric, one term, Ruto must go, and all that. Is it a missed opportunity? Because at the end of the day, why aren't they breaking down their agenda and clarifying on it as early as now?
You are right, they ought to. And that's why I'm there to tell them they ought to.
Are they listening to you then?
They will, I guess, but I really believe they ought to. Time is of the essence. Yeah.
It shouldn't be a missed opportunity.
No.
Can Linda Mwananchi sustain this momentum? We've seen them ranking highly, specifically Sifuna, on poll ratings here and there. Many question if it's a spur of the moment, if it's simply euphoria, as we've seen with other leaders who earlier on launched their presidential bids or declared interest in national politics. How do Because crowds don't translate to votes at the end of the day. How do we make sure that this is not just a wave?
Okay, you look at history and political trends in Africa, and you see that that matters. A good example is Senegal. You saw the current president is a young person, and it all started with this kind of vibe. You look at Botswana and several other jurisdictions where I would advise UDA not to ignore a vibe. You know, remember the Gen Z revolution? It started like a joke. Then it took a life on its own. So for me, I believe Sifuna represents something new. I even told His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua when we met that that young man, represents something unique. You need to look at him with a lot of fondness. I strongly believe that the stars are aligned in his favor. One, his age. You know, there is something called a youth badge. Africa is the only continent in the world where fertility rate of women is still quite high. In other places, you find, on average, one woman gets 2 children or one. Places like Japan, what we call the replacement ratio is even now down. There are more people dying than those who are being born. So, but in Africa, it's the opposite. We are the only place in the world where, on average, a woman fertility rate is about 4 children or 5. So that then means you will have more young people. And that concept is even more magnified in places like Western Kenya. So when you have that a huge bunch of young people, you'll find politics being youth-driven. That explains the Gen Z. That explains what we are now witnessing with Sifuna. Therefore, I believe Sifuna idea is grounded on the right political conditions. Young people wanting to exert themselves.
Okay, and the people who would perhaps water down the impact of the youth vote at the ballot, that they're quite active on social media, but when it comes to voting, you can't depend on the young people as a solid base. So come 2027, what do you make of the youth impact on the electoral cycle that is coming fast?
Assume worst case scenario, they don't vote, but they campaign for you, maybe through the social media, attending your meetings. Politically, that is still good enough. Because you see, you're having people who are selling you. You know, getting people to campaign for you, that's still something. So this idea of saying, oh, youth don't vote, for me, it's neither here nor there. I know of places where young people, like let's say Murang'a, where when you look at Murang'a demographic structure, it tilts in favor of the elderly, unlike other parts of the country. Central Kenya is more of a region where it's that more people are the elderly, which is a misnomer, but for several reasons, that is how Central Kenya is. However, despite that, young people tend to win in so many elections. Let's say like Murang'a County Assembly. I think 2/3 of Murang'a County Assembly is constituted of young people. Why? Because even the elderly, they somehow like young people. They look at them in some fondness. And therefore, trying to sail in the Mwananchi has no political impact on the basis that they are being powered by young people. For me, is neither here or there. Look, Gen Z, they caused the country to stop. So do not underrate the power of young people. But I also believe, and they will still have an impact during voting. But even if they don't even vote, they just persuade their mothers and their fathers. That's still good enough for Linda.
So when the rubber meets the road, and I know you're not about personalities, more about agenda setting, but if they come to you and ask you, Governor Kang'ata, We are trying to settle on a candidate. You're supporting Gachagua, but you're equally supporting Sifuna. Between these two individuals, who would you give the presidential ticket or the running mate position if you had to choose between them, Governor Kang'ata?
I don't talk personalities, but that question is best directed to His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. Yeah, because he's the leader of DCP. Yeah.
Okay. What do you make of this Mount Kenya East versus West narrative? Your party leader was in Meru, perhaps trying to counter that narrative that is coming up again. It's not the first time we've heard of it. So briefly, what do you make of that narrative?
It doesn't exist. We don't have an East, we don't have a West. We have one people. People conjoined by language.
Yeah.
They speak an almost similar language. They live in what we call a contiguous region, one area. They are culturally almost similar. History has bound them together. Remember, they were very strongly in the Mau Mau War. Yeah. So all those factors cannot be appended by one person.
So if someone argues that Mbeere North by-election and the Ol Kalou by-election are perhaps an indication of how voting on the ground will go in terms of Mount Kenya East versus West, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I think that will be a miscalculation in my view.
Okay, interesting. So why is Ol Kalou the true test, the true litmus test of the voting patterns in Mount Kenya and not Mbeere North?
Okay, first, you must understand who tends to pull the other. Is it the people of the other region or this other one? So once you understand that...
So who pulls the other?
The truth is the people of this other region.
Which one?
The central proper. They tend to be the one who pull the other.
Okay.
Okay, because of their numbers. Okay, that question is like asking me, can Luo Abasuba have a distinct political trajectory as against the Luos? Not possible. Bandi, I think he's currently fashioning himself as the Luo nationalist #1, whereas he's a Luo Abasuba, he's a Bantu. But for all practical and intents, they have now joined they are now covered by the Luos. Same logic.
All right, we are almost finalizing, and I'd like us to briefly speak about devolution. 14 devolved functions. Have they actually been devolved as a county leader? And equally, have we truly optimized on the potential that was envisioned during the formation of these 47 devolved units?
Yes, definitely. From where I sit, I believe devolution has been one of the greatest achievements of the country for the last 10, 12 years or so. Why? Because one, resources are now reaching all the parts of the country in a manner that was not happening prior to devolution.
So have all the functions been devolved?
No. Of course, we do have some that are being clawed back.
Like?
Water. Look at water. How many national government agencies that superintend counties? For me, unconstitutionally, take like WASREP. Yeah? It regulates tariffs. And then it inputs a 4% levy. You remember we were talking about levy? So there's a levy by WASREP on all water companies for every water tariff. So that tells you that there's a problem. Yeah.
What about building markets? What function? Does it fall under the counties or the national government?
Counties, but... Okay, from where I sit, by the way, I really don't mind anyone who can come and do anything that concerns the county.
Okay.
Yeah, in my county. This is a personal view. Yeah. So if anyone comes and says, me, I want to do something for the county, even if probably there's a legal query on that, I wouldn't mind. It's you who has decided to channel this money to a devolved function. As to whether that's the priority, I think there I can question. I doubt, by the way. I suspect if that program is not carefully scrutinized, we might have another form of white elephants. And I'll give you an example of Siya Githurai. There's a huge market that was done by the national government. Up to now, it does not have a single trader. In Karatina, which is the largest market in East and Central Africa, there's a huge building, again, that was done by the national government. The upper floors, no one does anything there. So I'm fearful if this program is not well thought of, we might get into the same problem.
Since you're so enthusiastic about healthcare, we've seen medics in several counties downing their tools over delayed salaries, poor working conditions, unfulfilled labor agreements. Is this a case in Murang'a County? How are you quelling the situation?
Let me not speak on that issue because let me not speak on
why is that? Come on, you're so enthusiastic about health. Why wouldn't you speak about it?
I would want, no, let me not speak on it. Skip.
Why is that? I have to ask questions. So if you tell me skip and you don't give me a reason, I'll still try and poke holes into it. Your T-shirt is written MEH. H for healthcare, right?
Okay, I would not want to. Okay, we have several programs which the county is trying to do on healthcare. But on the issues of employee employer relation, the current stalemate is national, isn't it?
Including in Murang'a?
Yes, but it's about national issues. So I'm sorry, I'm not the chair of CUG. I'm not the vice, I'm not the chair of CUG Committee on Health.
But what assurance would you give Murang'a County residents who might be affected due to this standoff at the national level? Because it boils down to you as well.
No, let's wait and see how the coordinated effort will be done to remedy the issue. I can only speak insofar as our interventions on healthcare are, and there are many.
Like?
One,
briefly, yeah.
Building more health facilities, whether dispensaries, whether more hospitals. Two, giving this insurance card for the poor people. People who cannot afford to go to hospital because they cannot afford out-of-pocket payment to share. We pay on their behalf about 40,000 households. That translates to about 160,000 individuals, assuming one household has 4 persons. The third one is more medical equipment, including a mobile dialysis truck. Number 4, we have telemedicine, where people with chronic ailments before used to come to Murang'a level 5, all the way from various corners of Murang'a, but now they are treated digitally by doctors who are domiciled in a certain hospital, but they see those patients remotely in about 35 other facilities. Those are the automation of our health records. So that people no longer carry physical cards. They go and we have a health information management system where people can log in, the doctors, the nurses, the clinicians, and then they create a digital record. So,
Well, we appreciate the effort put in healthcare, but at the end of the day, manpower is equally a very important cog to ensure that our sector continues moving. But I'll appreciate your right of no reply. Let's finalize with matters to do with funding counties. We saw the conversations between the Senate, who were trying to push for higher allocations to the counties. I think they reached a middle ground even as the finance bill became an act. But we've just heard that county governments are set to receive an additional 72 billion that is set to strengthen service delivery and speed up development programs in this financial year, and the allocations will primarily go to health, agriculture, and infrastructure projects under a new bill that is in Parliament currently as we speak. So generally, in terms of funding devolved units, of course, others are pushing for up to 450 billion. How would you say this current administration has dealt with issues of funding devolved units?
Okay, we definitely feel that we are underfunded. How? You look at the rate of growth of the national budget, and then vis-a-vis the rate of growth of the money allocated to the counties, you see a mismatch. So let's say, just for the purpose of this argument, you'll find the national budget has been growing at about, let's say, 20%, but the money being sent to the counties are not growing at the same rate. So in my view, counties, when you look at the kind of roles they render, they deserve more money. Yeah. Now we are now forced to be innovative, to have more better own source revenue.
Yes, yes.
Murang'a, when we came in, used to generate about 500 million per annum on average own source revenue. But as at today, last financial year that closed this year, 2026, June 30th, we clocked 1.7 billion. So that means that's about 200-300 rate of increase of own source revenue. So assume the national government also increased our exchequer at the same rate. Murang'a will be quite at a better economic situation as opposed to the current situation where we have problems. Counties, including Murang'a, we have systemic problems. One being the wage bill. You see, Murang'a pays...
At what percentage right now?
52% against the legal limit of 35%. In fact, we were being nudged to send employees home.
Did you do that?
No, we did it because we say these people have families. Yeah. If you send people out there, they will suffer.
So how do you reduce?
That is why you find counties very reluctant to add allowances, see, or salaries, because they calculate, if I do this, then my maths will not add up. Yeah, I have seen people agitating out there, but we are always telling them you have to be systematic. Otherwise, if you play around with your salary component, then the county can practically stop functioning. You are just sending all resources to pay employees.
Bill,
And you find counties, including Murang'a, we found problems of what we call pension management. Counties deduct, but they don't remit to pension funds. So you find a huge debt owing to the pension funds. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle because you don't want to just pay salaries and you don't do render services. You have to pick garbage. You have to
fund
buy
ECD,
drugs, or fund ECDs. You have your own programs that you are running. So it's a huge balancing act.
Well, you're up for the task, it seems, having been ranked as one of the top-performing governors. But to whom much is given, much is expected. This issue of devolving corruption to the counties still seems to be an issue we need to deal with as a country. How are you sealing loopholes, case in point, in Murang'a County, so as to ensure that, county officials don't hit the headlines for the wrong reasons in terms of misappropriating public funds?
Automation. I'll give you an example of how automation is important. Often counties, including Murang'a, they do mass distribution of certain commodities. Take, for instance, farm inputs. Murang'a, we have a program where under the agricultural department, we give certified seeds and fertilizer and pesticides to all our maize farmers for food security. Prior to that, people used to, once they harvest, they just keep some maize and they replant it. That means in the next season, the output would be very little. So we came up with this idea of buying certified seed for farmers, which has been positive because I've seen the farmer's output increase from an average 1 bag per farmer to about 2, 3, 4, 5. So that guarantees Murang'a food security. So we used to distribute those farm inputs through mass. You call people to a field, you give them. That's good for the camera, but very moral. For that farmer. One, that farmer will walk a long distance. He wastes that the whole day. And then young people, some of them might decide to grab. So, and also, you have issues. Your own employees, some are good, but some have issues of ethics. So they will lie to you. I took 50 bags to, let's say, Kegumo shopping center, in that field. But actually, only 30 were taken there.
I get you.
So an idea came, we automate that process. So we take those goods from, we usually buy from National Cereals and Produce Board. When we put those items with merchants, then we tell them, we have this system, operate it, you receive the goods digitally. Then you, immediately they reach your shop, the farmer gets a notification. Then the farmer goes there, redeems that item. So there's dignity, accountability, and that way we saw, in fact, prior to that, on average, a farmer used to get, let's say, 2 kg of fertilizer. Now they are now assured of about 10 kg of fertilizer.
Has this been replicated in other counties? Because we usually see leaders going to other countries to benchmark. Have they come to benchmark in Murang'a?
Let me say that I do not assume Murang'a is an SI unit of anything. I want to tell you many counties are doing a good job. Even us, we have stolen some of these ideas from other counties. And I'll give you an example of 3 places. One, when I was a senator, I went to Kakamega. I saw Governor Oparanya, where he had put tarmac. I always thought tarmacs are done by national government. But later I realized the cost by the national government to tarmac 1 kilometer of road is highly inflated. So on average it's 60 million. But you can per kilometer. You can do half and you do a good job. So,
and it doesn't affect the quality?
No, it doesn't. The one we did in Murang'a, let me give you an example. In Murang'a town, Grogan area of Murang'a town is still there. 4 years down the drain. Or Maragua is still there.
And you used 30 M per kilometer?
I think it was even cheaper, 20 something. So, and that idea was not mine. I took it from Kakamega. I was on a senator. Renovating ECDs, again, was not my idea. I took that idea from Kwale. When I saw Governor Mvure, what he was doing. I know my brother, governor from Mandera, that county pays fees for all children in high school. They don't pay anything, whether you're in boarding, whether you're in day school. And it has now one of the highest transition rate from primary to secondary school. So, yes, I don't want to say Murang'a, whatever. I know other counties are also doing a good thing. It's an issue of us going to them, learning the best. Even like now, we have an idea called Murang'a Youth Service, where young people, we give them a small stipend to clean our towns. Then we took them to Village Polytechnic to learn a trade. Then we give them a seed capital. That idea, again, is not originally mine. I read the history of America during Roosevelt leadership. And I saw that idea and then I implemented it. So, ideas are out there.
Yeah, and you can borrow the positives through the negatives,
We are not innovating anything. I believe so.
All right. Asante sana, Governor. I think that's all the time we had. Hopefully, we've been able to canvass most issues, matters to do with politics, matters to do with governance, and of course, the leadership at the national and the devolved level. Asante sana for your time.
Thank you. Okay,
that's how we take a break right here on KTN Prime. Do stay with us. Business news up next. This is what you can expect.